So why is your cost to acquire a customer going up, and how do you fix it? So by the end of this video, you're going to know how to fix your cost to acquire going up and why it's happening, and all the steps that you can take to very simply start to fix that. So let's dive in. Firstly, you'll see on my screen here, we've got something called the 5 stages of awareness funnel. So I'm just going to make my face a little bit smaller because that's not what you came here for. So the 5 stages of awareness. Imagine this guy, let's call him Barry, right? Barry starts off, and he starts off in the unaware stage. So if he's in the unaware stage, then he doesn't know about the problem, he doesn't know about the solution, he doesn't know about your product, right? He doesn't know anything about you, what you do, or the problems that you solve, right? Some people will stay in this stage and they will never move from there. Why? Because you don't have a product, or you don't solve a problem that they need, right? So for example, if I am selling steak and I'm trying to sell it to vegans, like, they don't have the problem that the steak that they're eating at the moment isn't good enough, or they want a better steak. Well, that it's not a problem for them because they're not looking to eat steak, right? So those people will always stay in the unaware stage. So there is going to be a percentage of people that will never buy from you, and that's okay, right? So then what happens? Well, let's say Barry does know your problem, right? And he does have the problem that you solve. So he comes into this problem aware stage. So when he's in the problem aware stage, he starts going, oh, maybe, I do experience that a lot, but he's not actively looking for a solution at that point. Okay. So when he's in this stage, this is where if we grow the people who are problem aware, but they don't know that there's actually a solution for that problem, then that is actually where a bigger stage of the market is to go after. These unaware people are harder to convert and take longer to convert, but I'm going to show you a few ways how you can do that. But the problem aware is where there's a lot of potential revenue and ways to drop down your cost to acquire a customer. Now, then we go a bit further down, and he comes into the solution aware section. So solution aware is he knows he's got a problem and he's actively looking for a solution, right? So that could be he's looking at your product, right? Then he's kind of coming down to product aware, but he's actively looking for a solution to his problem, right? So if he's like, I've got bad gut health or whatever, and he's like, I don't know what's causing it, but I keep getting stomach cramps all the time, right? He's got a problem, and now he's actively looking for a solution. So he might be looking at different sites, researching different things, right? Looking for the best way to solve that problem. Now, then when we go further down, then now he's product aware. So at this point, he might be aware of your product, but he also might be aware of a lot of other products as well. So now he's making the decision of whether he wants to go with your product or someone else's product, but he's kind of still in that awareness stage where he's deciding whose product to go with, right? And then you get to the most aware stage, and that's where he's done the extra level of research on your product. He's very clear of who you are, who you serve, what you solve, right? What is your unique solution, and he's very close to buying at that point. And then it's just your job to convert them. Here's what happens. This is why your CPA is rising. When you start out running ads or sending traffic or whatever, you're going to start out with those most aware people. Why? Because quite often you've got people in your network that are already going to that page to start off with before you start driving more colder and colder traffic. There's also, when you start out, you've got potentially, if you've got something that's a little bit more unique, and really nothing's unique in this world anymore, it's just a combination of taking one thing from over here and one thing from over here and then combining those things together, right? So that's really what uniqueness is. But if you've got something that's different, when you're starting off sending out to the market, you're going to have the hottest buyers coming through first, right? Those ones that don't need a lot of convincing, they buy first. What happens is, as you start to scale and increase the amount of ad spend, increase the amount of visitors, then people start going from this way, they start going back up right? So there'll be people coming into your world that you're trying to convert that are more maybe solution aware or problem aware. And then when you really get to that level of saturation, then you're having to try and go to an unaware market and educate them first they've even got a problem. And that's like where you've got a lot of extra dollars potentially on the table with that level. But ideally, you're going to start off with people who are at this most aware section. So here's what this looks like, right? So the cost to acquire the different stages of awareness. People who are unaware, it might be costing you $100 to acquire a customer. Problem aware, then it comes down to like 70, and then solution aware. And this is like, obviously, this isn't like every single funnel works on these exact numbers, but you get the idea of the trend line, right? So from unaware to problem aware, it's a bit of a steeper decline. And then we start going down from there, right? It's from 75 to 50, and then like down to 30, etc., and down to most aware. So these most aware ones, like they're already probably maybe coming from referrals, right? They've been watching loads of your stuff and they're just like ready to buy. Then let's look at it the other way around on a level of market saturation. So if you think you've got a new product that comes out, right, and it's you're first to market, great, first to market, and then within that first year, you're doing okay because you haven't got a lot of competition. However, what happens is then if you're in a duplicating market, which basically means once you create a customer, out of every 100 customers or 500 customers, you create another competitor, then over time, that market becomes more and more saturated because when someone sees a good idea, they'd rather copy that idea than make their own idea, right? So what happens is over the course of the years, we get to like 5 years in, and sometimes it happens quicker, sometimes it happens slower. But then you hit a level of market saturation, right? So you can see here we're like 90% market saturation. And then the cost to acquire is going up significantly. So these kind of trend lines go in line with each other. And then once they do, then you'll see that the cost to acquire starts going up and up and up and up, right? So earlier on, you are just generally going to make more money. So this is why you see a lot of the time, if a business is onto a good thing, let's say you've got something and you've got a front end product that's front end profitable before you even sell any extra products. If at that point, in year one, you're getting that kind of return, then what you want to do is push that and push that fast. Why? Because then you're generating the customers and you're taking the customers out of the marketplace. So as long as you provide a great service all the way through, you're creating a hub there of now when someone wants that solution, they come to you rather than to other people. And quite often, it's not the one who's first that wins; it's the one who's second that wins. Why? Because they learn from all the mistakes of the person that was first, so they can speed that ramp up time a lot quicker. And then that person who was first is still kind of recovering from the mistakes that they made in terms of that level of growth, right? So first person comes into the market, they start like flooding in the market, and they're getting loads of customers at a really cheap price. And then what happens by year two, they've now got all these customers, but they didn't have the fulfillment sequences in place. They didn't have the operational team in place. And then the quality of the service goes down. When the quality of the service goes down, then what did people do? Well, they go back looking for another solution. They look for another product, right? So then someone else comes into the market, and then maybe because they can put a unique spin on it, they can come in where you were on year one and get that cost to acquire a customer back down to where it was, and they can go through this cycle, but they can do it from the lessons and learnings to seeing where you guys failed, right? So in that respect, flip it on its head. You be the person who learns from other people's mistakes. This is why quite often, like for example, I was looking at building like these fill in the blank templates and everything a good few years back, where basically you could have a full fill in the blank template for all your copywriting pieces and everything like that. Right? We started doing this like 4 years ago. Now, what happened is within those 4 years, that took quite a lot of time to build those out, right? Because I had to have a copywriter go in, dissect every single thing from those templates, dissect all where the merge fields were, create integrations and extra tools to push that stuff across. So there was a lot of like complexities that were involved with that and a lot of cost involved. Then last year, ChatGPT came along, and suddenly now for me to create a fill in the blank template, I'll say turn this into a fill in the blank template, and it turns it into a fill in the blank template, right? And now we're kind of going beyond that, even fill in the blank templates. It will rewrite it in the style of someone else, like that, right? So sometimes if you're too early into the market, it means you're actually moving a lot slower rather than someone else that comes in at the right time. Now, we are a little bit ahead in some of those things because we already understood the structures that we want to create, and we've got a lot of tools that we use internally. But you see the point here, right, is you can come into a lower level of market saturation if you can create a unique spin on it, or you can combine two things together. So something that's already proven over here, something that's proven over here, and how do they combine? If you watch like Shark Tank or whatever, you see a lot of the time people are not coming in with new ideas, they're just putting their own spin on an existing idea, right? So I saw a company a while back where they were on Shark Tank and they were selling wine. Now, you could say, oh yeah, we sell wine. There's nothing unique there, but they were selling like floral fruity wines, which was kind of like a combination of more like a alcopop kind of thing with wine as well. So it made it more palatable for some people. So they created like a good combination of two different things, right? And that's what you want to look at, which stops you going into the high level of market saturation, especially if you're in a duplicating market, like I mentioned before. Okay, so how do we fix some of these things? Well, the 5 stages of awareness funnel. So let's look at that. So if people are in the unaware stage and you want to bring them further down the funnel, then what we can do is educate at that level. So what does education mean? So that can be content pieces like blogs and articles. It can be videos like this, right? I'm not selling in this video. Not everything's a sales video. So like I'm just generally giving you value that can help you grow your business. Now, at some point, then you might not even be aware that this was the problem. You might be, but you might have not seen it in this way before. And at some point, you now go, actually, that's why I've got a problem. So now you've got a problem. Guess what? You're not going to be seeking solutions in the same way. You're probably going to skip a couple of steps and come down to product aware, or maybe even most aware. And who are you going to go to? You're going to go to the person who give you the source of the truth, right? Who help you get that discovery in the first place. So when we can educate on the fact that there is a problem and educate on what that solution is, then everything else becomes a lot clearer. So this education piece as well could be like creating video view campaigns to valuable content. It could be like say blogs. It could be free resources. It could be sending emails to your email list, right? All these things like educate people. It could be going on other people's podcasts. It's basically getting your message, your unique way of doing things out into the world that highlights not so much what the solution is, but what the problem is, because then you can take them to the next stage of the funnel. And then once you've done that, then everything else starts to become easier because you start to speed up those levels of awareness because you've been the one who's done the educating. So let's look at the solution stage. Well, if you start seeing your CPA going up, right, you're hitting this level of market saturation, then remember what we said before is what if you started combining two things together? Now, another way to combine two things together is instead of like actually taking two physical ideas, what if you took your same product but put it into a different market? And this is where new solutions come up, right? Because sometimes there'll be a different market that's suffering from exactly the same problem, but they don't have a solution there. I spoke to someone a while back and they said that where they really kicked off their business is to start off with, they were trying to sell to entrepreneurs of how to buy a business. When they flipped that and went into the market of how to sell to like real estate investors of how to buy a business instead of buying real estate, then they actually created that as a new opportunity, right? So it's like really smart marketing. because they created a new market. Okay. And then we've got product aware. So, we've got most aware. So on the most aware, we've got organic reach. So if how do we make people most aware? Well, we go through that education piece on the unaware, and we can get them to almost skip quite a few of these steps. And I say skip, they still need to go through them, but they go through them much faster because they can go from problem aware to solution aware to product aware in a very short space of time, because you're the one who's guided them through that journey, rather than them having to discover that on their own, and then suddenly you pop up on their Facebook feed one day and be the answers and the prayers. And this is where a lot of people go wrong, is they want to make all the money on day one, and that's not where you make the money. You make the money over time. You get the lead on day one, but then from there everything else becomes rosy. So the most aware is focused on that organic reach, right? So social media platforms, email list, from being on other people's podcasts, JVs, right? List swaps, networking events, all those kind of things, speaking, all those organic reach things that can take someone from, puts you in a position of authority, and then it makes people most aware of your particular product and solution. So when you do those three things, that really helps. Now, if you're thinking, okay, Paul, they're good ideas, but how do I apply this to like everything? There's something called Da Vinci and the 40 Answers. So I was taught this by the youngest chief engineer at NASA, and we spent a whole day with him, and he went through the 40 ways to solve a problem, and it's something called TRIZ, which is the theory of inventive problem solving, right? And you're probably thinking, well, TRIZ doesn't match up to the acronym theory of inventive problem solving. That's because TRIZ is originally by like a German inventor or researcher that went through all that stuff. And in German, it spells TRIZ. It's slightly different. My German's not great. Anyway, the process here is you'll see this 40 different ways to solve a problem. So basically, they condensed it down from like 1,000 different solutions or whatever. So they looked at a load of patents over history. And then they saw, once they segmented it right down, that there were only 40 ways that people are actually solving a problem. That was it, 40 ways. And when you start breaking them down, it's really, really interesting. So I'll cover a few off here, like segmentation. So divide an object or system into independent parts. So, for example, you're like, I sell cars right now, right? If you sell cars, maybe the main way you make money from cars is selling a full car. But what if then you look at the car dealerships and they go, well, what if we sold the parts as well? Right? So then suddenly you're selling that recurring stuff. So divide the object. Like, for example, I've got a Tesla, and they sell the accessories, right? They sell the mats. Now, they could include the mats in the car, but instead they take them out of the car and charge you a ridiculous amount of price to have specific Tesla mats. Now, I'm not paying 250 quid for some mats, by the way. But what they've done is they've divided that out, right? They divide the accessories out there. You can get things for the boot and all that kind of stuff. As I can't remember what Americans call a boot, the trunk, right? You can get stuff that goes in the trunk to protect the trunk. Taking out, so separating an interfering part or property from the object or system. So this is kind of like similar to that, like simplification, right? So taking out is a really, really interesting one. And when you go through doing this process, this is a really good brainstorming thing to do with your team as well. Because when you start going through it, is everyone comes up with the common answers, right? For about 10, 15 minutes. And then what happens is then people run out of logical answers. So then they start coming out with creative answers. And that creative answer sometimes is a stupid idea to start off with. It sounds stupid on the surface, but then what if it's not? So this is what the chief engineer at NASA told us, that they would use these frameworks in order to solve very complex problems at NASA, right? They had very short meetings, like 7-minute meetings with all these people on, and then they would put them off into groups, and then those particular groups will go and look at solving the next problem, right? And they had to apply things in a very, very different way. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these right now, but I would highly recommend read Da Vinci and the 40 Answers. There was a free PDF available online before, if you just type in Da Vinci and the 40 Answers PDF. If not, you can get the book on Amazon. It's like 25 quid. I don't get any affiliate commission or anything from that. It's just like, I highly recommend the book. I actually bought it for 8 people on the team of one of our clients because I was like, this is so important. So please, please, please read it. So have a look at some of those things, right? So self service. So this is an interesting one if you're in the online coaching and consulting space, right? So making an object serve itself. So for example, you might go, okay, before we had to do this manually for each person, or they had to do it. Then how could we turn that into an AI tool that they could serve themselves, right? They could just put in a few details and then it creates the outcome for them. So you've got other different ones as well, right? So just trying to think of some good ones on here. So, I mean, feedback is a basic one. Implement feedback to improve or control the system. So you could create a feedback loop into your process, or you can then implement feedback in order to make the product better. So just look at all of these kind of things that you can do. Feel free. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit so you can just take a screenshot of that. There we go. Right. So take a screenshot of that. You can go through any of those, run it into any AI tool as well, and just like get it to explain more about those things and give you some physical examples and stuff. All that stuff like works really, really cool. So you can apply those things to actually speed up those levels of awareness and keep your cost to acquire down over time. So if you've got any questions on that, like just drop them in the comments, like here to help and support. Let me know what else you would like to see if this has been beneficial for you. Drop a like and subscribe. And then if you want any help like reducing that cost to acquire a customer down, then you can book a call at amplifycom.com and happy to help with that stuff. So have a fantastic day and I'll catch up with you soon.